Welcome back to another Tony Montana video. A notice and reminder to all that listen to my videos, the Tony Montana content is shared for educational and historical purposes. Tony Montana aims to provide fresh content that adds value and knowledge without the drama. Well, aside from Tony unmasking Chico salesman Lopez Hihath. This audio was pulled from a book I own and recommend to buy if you like books of modern history of the breed. The name of the book is Pit Dog Savior, written by Hihath. I will leave the link to the book in the description of this audio/video. Now, if you have not subscribed to the Tony Montana channel, what are you waiting for? Remember, the content is straight from the book and is for historical record-keeping purposes. Please go buy his book to own a piece of Pitbull history. Rules of the game. There are several sets of rules including Brown, Klaus, Cajun, UKC, United Kennel Club, and others. School never agreed with any of these for various reasons. Mostly because they were incomplete and or vague. School would profess a clear set of rules to those who would listen, but many wannabes insisted on what they thought were understandable, which they usually turned out not to be. School called his rules, classroom rules. They not only included rules for the match itself, but for the crowd also. Big shows often include a few loudmouths and or somebody that wants to try to be too much of a coach for his dog or handler. Before dog men ever get to the pit, a lot of decisions need to be agreed upon in order to ensure things go smoothly at match time. Too many matches end up beginning with arguments because the dog men didn't take the time to work details out prior to showtime. It's especially the wannabes that end up with problems just prior to match time. They come in overweight, they are late, they can't agree on a scale, they don't have their money straight, or they want more time to make weight. You see it all the time, especially when inner city crowds are involved. When two dog men agree on a match, they have to communicate, and unless they are two seasoned honorable men, a third party needs to be involved. It doesn't matter if there is one match or 5 matches at the show. You are looking for trouble if you don't follow school's pre-match recommendations. Years ago, when school began his career, dog men wrote contracts. After the Humaniacs got the felony laws passed, dog men got away from written agreements. Ironically, before the felonies, most dog men were very reputable men whose word was good and morals high. After the felonies, the dog game became flooded with hustlers and shady characters playing strictly for money instead of honor for their gladiators. The state felonies actually backfired on the Humaniacs. Dog fights increased and became much more brutal because of the decline of dignified dog men. When an agreement is made to fight a dog, it is usually done one of 2 ways. One being, a matchmaker or promoter gathers weights from dog men with dogs they want to match. A dog man declares that he has a weight open, example, 45-pound male. He usually declares a ballpark figure of how much money he wants to bet. For example, $800 to $1,200. If a host or promoter gets 2 weights that are similar, he notifies both parties. Those parties have to agree on several things: date of the match and, if possible, the starting time. The location needs to be compatible. They also need to agree on who is allowed to attend, or perhaps, how many will be in attendance. They need to agree on the type of scale that will be used, the amount of forfeit and match, the referee, and who is holding the forfeit. Normally, the forfeit is half the bet, but forfeits can be set at any amount. Parties need to agree on who holds the forfeit and how soon the forfeit is to be put up. 2 honest dog men can agree on the forfeit and not put it up. If something happens to interfere with the match being held, a forfeit will be paid. This process is known as a gentleman's agreement. Don't try this with someone unless you know and trust them. Many dog men send a money order or personal check to be cashed by the neutral money holder, especially if that person is more than a short drive away. When there is a middleman involved, there is often more than one match. This possibly creates a problem for starting time unless a dog man is in the first match. Dog men and sponsors have to agree which match is first, second, third, etc. So one match can be set where dogs have to be on weight and start by 8 p.m. There is no way to set a time for match 2. Dog men can agree that their dogs must be on weight by the end of match 1. If match 1 is forfeited, dogs in match 2 have to be on weight at 8 p.m. also. Dogs in match 3 have to be on weight at the conclusion of match 1 and 2. Male dogs are customarily fought before females unless dog men agree differently. Rarely do males ever fight females, but occasionally it happens. If only 2 parties are involved, it's a simpler process. Dog man A tells dog man B they fight at 8 p.m. and dogs are either on weight or somebody pays the forfeit. Oftentimes, dogs are not required to weigh the same and dog men often agree to bet different amounts. For example, if dog man A is driving 800 miles to the pit and dog man B is driving 5 miles, dog man B may agree to bet $1,000 against dog man A's $800. Dog man B may agree to let dog man A's dog weigh 45½ pounds, while his weighs only 45 pounds. This is commonly done to accommodate the traveling expense and or travel stress on the participants. Dog men commonly agree on a set number of people they are allowed to bring and or how many people are allowed to attend. If one of the participants has a problem with a particular person, it can be designated that that person not be allowed to attend. A known troublemaker, named Crazy Steve Mart, was not allowed at school's place after he acted like an idiot at a couple shows. Most good dog men don't allow a bad actor back at their place after they've been too loud, tried to welch on a bet, or tried to cheat somehow. Another dishonorable man school banned from attendance was Coy. Bert Klaus set a great precedence years ago by making it known that if you weren't considered a decent dog man, he would not only not referee your match, he would not attend a show you held. School attempted to carry on Bert's example, as did the well-liked Bill Bancroft, a well-known Midwest promoter/sponsor. School once heard Bert Klaus respond loudly to an obnoxious spectator, who brought that S.O.B. It was also a disgrace to have invited an unruly participant and considered your responsibility to shut him up or remove him if you brought him. The very much respected Feelers never allowed drinking at their shows. Mr. Leigh Feeler was truly a classy fancier and so was his son Ricky. A lot of arguments begin at the scale. Ideally, both dogs are underweight and dog men weigh, then wash dogs, and the match begins. However, some jerks try to bring their dogs in overweight without paying a forfeit. Not too many years ago, almost all dog men used the old Hansen spring scales. It was hard to adjust these scales perfectly and winners would complain about a quarter pound or less. They'd either try to cheat by being a quarter over and blame the scale, or want a forfeit from their opponent for being a hair over. Some scammers even purposefully made scales weigh light or heavy to their advantage. Dog men should never travel to a destination without their check weight or scale. A few years ago, most dog men began using digital scales. They don't lie. A certified check weight and an accurate digital scale is foolproof. But even then, certain dog men will try to bully opponents at the weigh-in. One time School met some big-timers from Dallas halfway. They had a reputation for rarely losing. They traveled in large numbers with a lot of money and they were a tough black group led by Quinton Billy Ahms. Billy Ahms and School argued heatedly, but School showed up with one buddy, so the big black crowd was overbearing. Williams was over about a half pound on Pepley's Hansen hanging scale and School was right underweight. The females only weighed 30 pounds, so a half pound is a lot of difference against tough competition when a lot of money is involved. Billy Ahms refused to pay forfeit and the designated referee, OPK, wouldn't man up and tell Billy Ahms he owed a forfeit. School stood his ground and told Billy Ahms he had a digital scale and certified check weight and insisted they weigh on that scale. Billy Ahms refused and the referee refused to declare School rightful ownership to forfeit. School had a choice, leave and go home 600 miles or go ahead with the match. Of course, being the gamer he is, he went ahead and whipped the big mouth bullies from Texas. However, if OPK would have required the Texans to pay the forfeit, School would have bet that also and had double the money. So in the end, school got cheated out of $1,600 because the crowd was 99% Texans and the ref wouldn't man up. So long story short, you have to have a neutral ref with some testicles to ensure rules will be followed. Rules without an enforcer are similar to tits on a board. School had balls the size of grapefruit and frequently stood up to groups of loudmouths and reminded them how real dog men conduct themselves. He sure felt good sending the Texans packing with empty pockets. They got what they deserved. Karma. Okay, how are you liking the content? If you want Tony Montana to provide more content like this, press the like button. Let's go back to the article. Before the dogs are weighed and referee has been decided, the rules need to be discussed. The parties need to review who is their second, which is the person who helps the handler, the length of time given to scratch after the ref signals pit your dog or release your dog, the time allowed in the corner, the sponge man, the timekeeper, who calls turns, what is required on the scratch, hair-to-hair contact or mouth, the out-of-hold time dogs can be allowed to both be out of hold before the ref declares handlers to pick up dogs, which dog is being washed first, and who is washing and who is holding the dog in the pit. Sometime before dogs are officially weighed, the handlers should agree on who washes their dog first. If they can't agree, a coin is tossed and the winner selects to wash first or have his dog washed first. The handler taking his dog to the pit first, gets to choose his corner in the pit. Agreements need to be made on what is to be done with the dogs after weigh-in. Sometimes the dogs go back into a kennel after weigh-in or are walked prior to being taken to the wash area. Some dog men agree to allow the opponent's dog to be fed and or watered after they make weight. Some don't. Under school's rules, once a dog has made weight, they can be fed watered. Once a dog is washed, he should be watched constantly by the second to make sure a rub is not applied. A rub is any substance that could be put on a dog to give an advantage, such as a poison or repellent. Dog men use all kinds of chemicals to clean opponents' dogs before matches. Normally, dog man A, or his second, wash dog man B's dog and vice versa. Water needs to be lukewarm and a wash and rinse tub should be provided. Dog men use shampoo, alcohol, and other cleaning agents. School used baking soda as a wash, then rinsed, then applied milk to opponents' dogs, and rinsed lightly again. He always liked it when opponents put alcohol and soap on his dogs because he knew it didn't taste good. That's why he never used it on opponents' dogs. Smart cookie. Once dogs are washed, they need to go directly to the pit. Once both dogs get into the pit and face toward each other from their respective corners, the referee will say release your dogs or more simply pit. The dogs attack each other and begin fighting. Each dog has a handler and the referee is inside the box also. The pit or box should be at least 14 square, preferably 16. The handlers normally follow their dogs around as they are fighting, encouraging them, but they're not allowed to touch either dog unless the ref calls for a handle. Some rules require the referee to call the turns. Some say that the handlers call the turns and the referee confirms a turn, then requests handlers to handle their dogs when they are free. Free means out of hold. A turn is when one dog turns his head and neck to avoid contact. It's not uncommon for handlers and or referees to disagree on what a tum is exactly. According to school's classroom rules, a turn is when a dog turns head and neck in a manner that reflects avoidance of the opponent. Dogs are frequently turning their heads and necks while fighting, but it's only a turn if an avoidance is included. The infamous Bert Klaus refereed as many matches as anyone and Bert's remark about turns was, 11 a turn is a turn. Therefore, it was very easy to get a tum called on a dog with a ref like Bert, unlike some who insisted their dogs really make a significant effort to get away from their opponent. A big turn such as this is called a bad move. When a dog makes a turn, especially a turn that is considered a turn that is a bad move, it is often a sign that the dog is not trying to fight real hard. A dog that turns sometimes won't scratch when he is handled. However, a few dogs will turn and continue scratching for hours. Once the tum has been confirmed by the referee, handlers are required to make a handle of the dogs as soon as they are free. Making a handle is when handlers snatch up their own dogs by the back of the neck and carry them to their respective corners. At the time, the designated sponge man should toss a wet sponge to each corner. The handlers have exactly 25 seconds to sponge and inspect their dogs. At the end of 25 seconds, the timekeeper notifies the ref that 25 seconds is up. The referee says 25 face your dogs. The handlers must face dogs with feet on the scratch line and show their dog's head and shoulders. At 30 seconds, the referee says pit or release your dog. The handler whose tum it is to scratch must release his dog. He cannot push or touch his dog after the ref says pit. The other handler may hold his dog or release his dog. The scratching dog has 10 seconds to make contact. School's rules are hair to hair, so if the scratching dog touches his opponent, the scratch is complete and the opposing handler must release his dog. The dog that the turn was called on is required to scratch first. After that, the dogs scratch in turn every time a handle is made until the end of the match. Like this rule because the definition of mouthing is too vague. Some dog men argue that mouthing is taking hold of the opponent. Some say it's simply putting mouth on the opponent. With the hair-to-hair rule, there's nothing to argue about. The dogs either touch or they don't. School wrote his rules to clarify expectations and refine discretion. Once the scratching dog is released, he normally has 10 seconds to complete his scratch. The referee will be keeping the time. Sometimes, handlers agree to a longer time to scratch up to 20 seconds. School's rules designate a 20-second scratch. That gives the dogs more opportunity to clear their head and make it across the pit. School saw too many matches ended in the 10-second scratch with a losing dog trying to make a scratch and being counted out just before they completed their scratch. A 20-second scratch gives dogs benefits of the doubt. If they haven't made it by 20 seconds, it's over. Also, once a handler releases his dog, he cannot cross the scratch line until his dog has completed his scratch. In other words, the handlers must stay in their corners until the dogs have resumed fighting. The handler who's being scratched into has the option to hold his dog, waiting for the scratching dog to be counted out, or he may release his dog as soon as the referee calls pit your dog. If a handler knows the opponent's dog will scratch hard, he usually lets his dog go quickly to avoid letting him get slammed in the corner by a hard, charging, scratching dog. A dog that seems to be quitting because he's tired, discouraged or physically hurt, and often doesn't scratch hard. Therefore, the handler of the dog being scratched into, would hold his dog hoping the scratching dog doesn't complete the scratch in the time provided. There are matches when dogs both come out of hold and no turn has been called. An example of this is if both dogs were very tired and or hot and stop fighting to get their breath or stop because they've decided they don't want to fight anymore. This is when the referee begins the out of hold count. In School's rules the out of hold count is 30 seconds, but this can be anywhere from 10 to 60 seconds, depending on what the handlers agree to. Once the referee times the dogs out of hold for 30 seconds, handlers must pick up dogs. The dog that was out of hold the longest must scratch first. If that particular dog scratches, then the dogs scratch in turn. If the first dog fails to scratch, then the second dog scratches to win. Now the first dog may wander somewhere and be counted out. That dog's handler must take him back to the corner and hold him, showing his head and shoulders while the second dog has a chance to scratch. If the second dog scratches, he wins. If both dogs fail to scratch, it is a draw. During a match, a lot of things can happen to interfere with the dogs. Under School's rules, the entire crowd must be quiet and still during scratches. Handlers are not allowed to touch the dog that's required to scratch. Handler cannot drop a dog to his feet to encourage him to scratch. The handler may clap or verbally coach his dog as long as he doesn't touch him. A handler is allowed to talk to his dog during a match, but cannot touch him unless he is making a handle. Handlers may blow on their dogs to cool them, but are not allowed to use anything to fan their dogs except their hand. Crowd members are not allowed to distract dogs such as banging on the pit wall. Crowd members may talk to dogs, however, they should do it quietly. No one in the crowd is allowed to touch dogs or put anything in the pit. The referee or designated money holder should give the bet money to the winner of the match or to his second as soon as a winner is declared. Sometimes handlers purposefully delay handling their dog when it's the opponent's turn to scratch, hoping that by letting the fight continue without a handle, it will increase the chance of the opponent's dog to fail to scratch, or to allow their dog to inflict more punishment. Under any rules, this is dirty handling. A true sportsman will willingly handle his dog when he's free. School's rules and most others allow a referee to warn a handler and disqualify him if dirty handling persists or is flagrant. There are many other issues that can pop up during a match, such as tripping the opponent's dog or grabbing your own dog and jerking while he's in a hold. Handlers sometimes step on an opponent's dog or block the handler from getting to his dog to get a handle. Some spit in their own dog's mouth. School's good friend, Bush Clerk, was officiating a match when a handler kept taking his hat off and fanning his dog. Bush told the handler to stop fanning his dog. The handler replied, "There's nothing in the rule book that says I can't fan my dog with my hat." Bush wisely answered, "There's nothing in the rule book that says you can't park your car in the pit either, but you ain't fanning that dog with your hat." In summary, a referee's responsibility is to make the match fair and use discretion as to render a warning for a minor foul or possibly disqualify a handler for a flagrant foul. School told every opponent he didn't trust the same thing. "I'm not gonna cheat you and you damn sure ain't gonna cheat me. Real dog men let the dogs scratch it out and the best dogs win." School was a dedicated dog man with an intense admiration for the sport and a true love for his gladiators. Whenever it came to defending one of his warriors, it didn't matter how many were on the other side or how tough they thought they were. School always said, "I never do anyone wrong unless they do me wrong first, then it's game on." Sometimes you gotta fight to be a man. Another common occurrence in a match is handlers try to make a handle while dogs are free, and as the handle is made, the dogs resume holds. The fair thing to do is to gently set the dogs back down. An old trick that slick handlers use is, grab their dogs while he's lying down, pretending they think he's out of hold and they are trying to make a handle. Then they set the dog back down, but this time on his feet. The original bushwhacker, Bilbert Rogers, from Kansas City, Kansas was famous for slick handling such as this. His replacement, Big Harv, and his brother, the current bushwhackers, are good, honest, dog men. As good a dog man as old Bilbert was, he was mainly a hustler. Another important common occurrence in dog fighting is fanging. Fanging is when a dog bites completely through his own lip and the tooth, usually a top canine tooth, remains in the lip. Dogs that have loose lips and long canines are especially prone to this. Most dogs that are fanged don't bite their opponent as hard as usual, and this creates a big disadvantage. Good handlers constantly watch their dogs for fanging. Normally a referee won't alert a handler that his dog was fanged. The handler should call his own fangs. When a dog is noticed being fanged, the handler must tell the ref his dog is fanged. The referee will inspect the dog to confirm a fang. This is commonly done by observing the mouth, by lifting a dog's lip usually with a breaking stick. Once the fang is confirmed, the referee may attempt to unfang the dog while fighting resumes. If this is not possible, the referee will command handlers to grab their dogs by the back of the neck while dogs are still in hold. If the ref or the handler can unfang the dog with a finger, pencil, or other defanger, the dogs are released immediately. School and most professionals use a defanger, such as a blunt deer antler, to unfang dogs. When defanging is not possible, while dogs are in hold, the referee will hand both handlers a breaking stick. A breaking stick is a wedge-like tool usually made of hardwood or tough plastic. Sometimes goat horns are used. The breaking stick is used to pry open the dog's mouth to release the hold. Once the dogs are separated, they are turned away from each other so they can't see each other. Dogs are defanged, then the ref commands face your dogs. They should be approximately 3 feet apart. Then the ref will say, 1,2,3, pit, and the dogs are released. Don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to Tony Montana's channel.